Hi everybody, my name's Amy Reidel. I'm an artist in St. Louis, Missouri. I have a master's in painting and drawing, so I'm pretty trained in that discipline, although I work primarily with multimedia. So I'll use whatever I can get my hands on to get my point across. That includes works on paper, works on canvas. I've done many really large scale glitter and colored sand installations, video, scent, and most recently, the thing I'm most excited about are some ceramic sculptures I've been working on. And I found I get the most excited about things I don't have a clue about. So I've never taken a ceramics class, and I am having a ball making these little kind of hand-built sculptures. I'll show you those later on in this kind of virtual studio visit. Um, I've lived in St. Louis the majority of my life, with the exception of moving to Abiquiu, New Mexico for a while, where I was a caregiver on a vineyard and ranch in the high desert mountains. That was really dreamy. But then I wanted more of an art community, so I moved on to get my Master's of Fine Arts at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, which was a great experience. I made wonderful friends. While I was there, it was the early 2000s, like 2005 through 2008. So there were still some presences there that were like white male dominated professors. And so I took that to heart because I was in my mid 20s and I didn't understand that perhaps the perspectives were different, and I was told that a lot of my work was very, emotional. It was a little too raw, perhaps a little too journalistic at times. And so I started finding these ways to say what I wanted to say about issues dealing with depression and anxiety, or more mild issues like homesickness or heartache, to say what I wanted to say in this sort of abstract manner to appease the people that I looked up to guide me as a professional artist. So I started working with scientific image bases, primarily Doppler weather radar. I worked with TV personality meteorologists to film videos, and I used these beautiful, colorful, abstract radar images of storms and represented them in oil paint first, and then later as glitter recreations on the floor of gallery spaces. So they were definitely like the Tibetan mandalas. They were sparkly, they were dazzling, they were enticing, and I loved the duality that this sparkle and this glitz was actually, a symbol of impending danger or doom in the form of like tornadoes or ice storms. So that was kind of my first foray into dealing with abstraction. Later, still referencing autobiographical issues, including my mother's cancer, I began working with color MRIs and Doppler ultrasounds and digitally merging Doppler radar of weather systems with these color MRIs and these Doppler ultrasounds. I found that, the highlighting of a tumor within the body through through these medical scans really mimicked the way that Doppler radar portrays storms. So I would digitally merge those and recreate these new colorful abstractions and then represent those using only glitter. You can go to my website, www.amyreidel.com, to find those out. I started realizing, as I've gotten in my 30s, I've become way more comfortable with my feminism. And I realized, who was telling me that my work was too emotional, who was telling me that perhaps it was a little journalistic. And I understood that that perspective was not the only perspective. That's the default modern art perspective, right? So kind of going through life, going through my own pregnancy and my own childbirth experience, realizing how sort of quieted women are. I think we all know that. And that infuriated me again when it became incredibly personal and dangerous for me medically. So my work is representative of all of that rage, of the joy and love of being a daughter and a mother. This maternal lineage is like obviously threaded throughout all of my work. Everything has a lot of color, a lot of saturation, but then again, there's this underlying hint of fear, or I think there is. So I'm going to look at these questions real quick and answer something specific for you. What are some practices or methods that I've created to generate or refine my ideas? So I mentioned earlier about the ceramics. I have found that when I'm struggling with a painting or with, an installation or a full exhibit, going back to my roots, which is drawing and works on paper, that can be the thing that opens me up the most. I have one right here. This is like a good example. When I was working with the idea of the incorruptible mystic and fluorescent geology, using masking tape, collage, pastel, graphite, hot glue, fake hair, fake fur, homegrown crystals. I make my own geodes. Using plaster and crystals. It's like on Martha Stewart's website. It's nothing crazy brilliant. But I use all of these kind of craft-based materials, cobble them all together into these little compositions that help me get out of my head, especially, carrying the bag, being trained as a painter by a bunch of modernists. Carry a lot of baggage when I'm confronting a canvas or a painting. So my works on paper really help me get past that and understand that the imagery generated in my head is okay. It's like, it doesn't have to be more. It doesn't have to be abstracted or completely synthesized in order to satisfy a perspective that I'm not that interested in satisfying any longer. So so the works on paper, that's one way. Anytime I step outside of a discipline that I was trained in, the first sculptures I ever made, I made these love tumors, I called them, and they were fashioned out of failed paintings that I tore up, shredded family photos. I made like this nucleus of failed paintings and shredded family photos, and then wrapped them in tulle and tinsel, like Christmas tree tinsel, hot glued some of my homegrown geodes on top, painted them with glitter glue. Later I found out I was making like a Sculpture 1 assignment on accident, but I had never done it before. And so that was so liberating. And I thought they were tacky and beautiful and trashy, but they're made from my family memories. And that, in a nutshell, is like what I want to make. So anytime I step outside of my usual disciplines is when I really feel excited, and I'm able to kind of run with it and feel confident in myself and what I have to say and what I have to make. So I'm realizing some things right now. I don't know how much I should make paintings, but I'm going to answer another question here. What does a typical day in the studio look like? Right now, not good, everybody. It's more like, what does a day in the kitchen look like? I'm cooking all the time. If you're watching this in some other year, we're under quarantine right now due to COVID-19. So we are sheltering in place. I have a partner and a 2.5-year-old, and I'm teaching 5 classes for 3 different institutions. So my studio time has been lacking, to say the least. I am working on not beating myself up about that. I am finding a lot of joy in making cardboard doll houses with my daughter and making elaborate dinners, thanks to a pretty privileged position, I guess, right? I'm not yet scared of not having enough food to eat, and I'm very grateful for that. So when I get back into my studio, which I'm here right now, but I'm not working on anything in progress right now. I'm really excited to do the things I talked to you about, more works on paper with collage and more ceramics for sure. So let's see. What is something the viewer doesn't know about my work when they see it? I only know this because of, like, my aunts are some of my biggest fans. None of them have any art background whatsoever that I'm aware of, but they come to all my shows, and they're very, very supportive and sweet. And when I gave the first artist talk that they came to, they said that they had no idea how much thought went into everything that I make. So that has stuck with me, that apparently sometimes, and I'm sure this is true for everybody, that things look accidental, things look unintentional, or maybe messy. And I would say that every little brushstroke, every little glaze, here's one of my little ceramic babies. I don't know if you can see it well. There you go. Just that every little hole, every little scratch has been thought about, it's been cared for, and it's been decided upon. So I think that would be the most surprising thing. this thing about viewing work online, there's a question here. How does online viewing help or hinder the experience of my work? As an artist, I don't know what it's like for other viewers of my work, but as an artist, I've got a lot of friends that when they get on Instagram, they just feel deflated. They feel like they can't keep up with what other people are doing, whether it's like the output that other artists are creating or the recognition that they're getting. And I suppose this is going to sound like I'm being a little hard on myself, but I didn't really ever have the thought that I would be like a very successful New York artist, even though that's what was pushed upon me in graduate school and beyond. I just never thought that that world was for me. I have always wanted to be close to my family. I've wanted to be close to the earth and have gardens and things like that. So I thought, boy, I'm not cut out for that anyway. That's probably not going to be in my path. So as long as I can like get some shows, a few times a year, which I've been able to do, then I'm pretty satisfied with my career. So when I get onto Instagram, which is how I'm taking this like online viewing question, I feel like, yeah, go, good work. And most often I see artists making work that I am just a big fan of. And I feel like, yeah, if they can, they can like make this work that is emotive and colorful and wonky and kind of nutty, I feel like so can I. So it's been really validating for me. I am talking mostly about other, fellow women identifying artists that I really feel a kinship with when I get on Instagram. Some of those would be Jamie Romanet is one of my favorites. She works a lot with watercolor. She's living in Paris. Let's see, Lauren Erdős. I don't know if I said that name right. Big fan of that work right now. It's OK Lauren on Instagram. So those are, just a couple. My good friends Rachel Dove and Michael Giles and Stephanie Lopez. Big fans of their work as well. So I mostly feel like I'm on the same team with these artists when I'm looking at their work. Yeah, that's all. So let me see. I'm going to see if there's another question I can answer for you all. So I'll tell you, it's kind of, I answered this already, like kind of how to keep my practice fresh or engaging for me. And again, I know I told you it's like working on stuff that I'm not familiar with, but I have one more of my little ceramic Mombies right here. It's Mombie, M-O-M-B-I-E. And they've been great. Like I said, I have no experience with ceramics. So this hand building is, of course it's therapeutic. It's challenging because I'm not familiar with ceramics tools. I don't know how to use them properly. So sorry, ceramicists, if I'm just tearing up your discipline here. But finding those challenges and troubleshooting is really satisfying. And I think it's that since I don't know enough about it, I'm unaware of the things that I'm doing wrong. And so it's nice, feels good. And so everything is glazed, and the surprise of the firing process is so exciting. I have to use my patience and wait for the firing to be over and wait for things to cool down. And then I am also hand painting each of them, which has been really great to merge my painting practice right onto these individual glazed ceramic sculptures. And again, the Mombie series, it's, my experience being a woman in America and having doctors not listen to me fully, watching my mother and my grandmother and my aunts go through cancers, and raising a daughter now during a Trump presidency. So that is pretty much, I'd say, the crux of my work right now, just sort of a terrified but loving, hopeful, joyful, ragey response to all of those things. I suspect there might be some women out there that can relate. I think that that's about it. I'll wrap it up here. So thank you very much for listening. I hope I answered a few questions. If you've seen my work, I hope I satisfied this little makeshift studio visit. And thank you so much for including me. Bye.